Moke, this is Moko, Chief Scientist of PayPal. We're going to do a featured interview with him, and he just showed me something backstage that I figured we're going to switch things up and actually show that now that we have this kind of demo set up already. So if we could go to that input for the iPad, I think this is a good visual representation of some of the ways that I wanted to kind of start this discussion anyway, which is how PayPal is positioned, globally speaking. And you can explain what is happening in this kind of spinning graphic in terms of PayPal's usage globally, what these colors, sizes of balls, et cetera, entail.
Yeah, thanks. So, hello, everyone. My name is Moke. What you see here is, we call it PayPal Earth, and it's just a quick visualization of the amount of transactions happen all over the world, people using PayPal, that is. So, as you can see, the size of the balls are the volume. The color of the balls are the currency. And you can see a lot of balls flying all over the place. But
it's kind of like this conference.
Yeah, but it goes. There's a lot of trans-border, cross-border transactions happening as well. So, really, it's about 1/4, about 25% of our transactions are cross-border. And if you can think about PayPal as really sort of a universal adapter and taking friction out of payments for everyone globally, really.
And that's really across platforms. And now we can go back to the slides. And that's the one thing I think is one thing that's differentiating PayPal. We hear a lot about mobile payments, very opportune area. There are a lot of different competing standards.
Yes.
Some of those you compete with, but I think that the differentiating point is not only your global user base, which I think positions you well to start to leverage the opportunity as things move mobile, but also the different places where you're positioning yourself. And I want to get into that and really kind of like what we did with Google, define where PayPal is for those unfamiliar. And there's a lot that's happening on the mobile device which can be considered m-commerce.
Yep.
So payments between people over the mobile device. I think the interest of this conference being more locally oriented is more about the offline payments. And one of the things that you guys have done recently, starting with Home Depot and then with a number of other retailers, is a point-of-sale integration. Talk about that, and both from the user and the merchant perspective.
Yeah, so you can think about PayPal as sort of awesome online payment experience, and now we're trying to really go offline. We're saying we should be anytime, anywhere, any way that you want to pay. We should be there for you. So as we go offline, there's, again, if you look at, just stepping back for a sec, like if you look at the pie of retail, only about, 6, 7, 8%, depending on how you count it, is online transactions. Everything else is offline. Yep. So it's a huge, huge opportunity for, all of us, actually. And especially with having an awesome core in terms of payments, we're trying to really leverage our core strengths to go more offline and go into really the brick that what we call it. As you can see in the slide here, there's some of the POS hardware partners, Verifone, Equinox, and Ingenico. Basically, there's 40 million POS systems out there that we're integrating with. So, again, when we say anytime, anywhere, any way, we're really attacking the POS and making sure that when you're there, you can start paying. How many of you guys paid with PayPal? Well, one. How many of you have a PayPal account here? Sure. Thank you. Thank you. How many here have tried paying with PayPal at Home Depot? None. Not yet. Okay. So I liked it a lot. So the way you can pay is you go there. There's two ways to pay it. I left my phone in the car, and I bought a whole bunch of stuff that I really didn't need. And then you can type in your phone number and your PIN code, and you can pay, and you're done. So I thought it was a wonderful experience. The other way to pay it is through a card. It's not a credit card. It's just a token. So you swipe it, and then you can put your PIN in, and then you can buy that way as well. As soon as I was done, I went back to the car, saw my phone, I got an SMS text with my receipt. Great experience. So please try it if you can.
So that's the consumer experience. What is the benefit to these merchants in having this?
Yeah. So there's I can talk about some numbers, but really, what we want to do is provide value in terms of bringing in feet in the street to the stores.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the goal. And for POS, especially for the large merchants, I mean, we're calling it a test and learn year, 2012. What that means is that there's no revenue numbers, we put out there for the street to figure out and see, how well we do. But it's really more about trying to learn how to get consumers to walk into the stores more. Yeah. Of course, I mean, the side benefit is, okay, if they use PayPal, great, right? But really, it's about, okay, how do we help Home Depot such that more people will go in?
Sure.
How do we help, Abercrombie, with all these people here, and just making sure they have a really frictionless payment experience.
So it seems like it's a matter of accepting more forms of payment, provides the user or the customer with more options, and then therefore is bringing in more people. Is there anything you're providing that the credit card companies aren't with a good old-fashioned credit card swipe in terms of data for that merchant to then do interesting kind of loyalty programs or reward customers in store, anything along those lines?
Yeah, so again, lots of stuff, PayPal is going through a change. We have a new president, David Market.
Of course.
Awesome guy, just very entrepreneurial, very product-driven. So in that sense, it's hard to beat. Well, let me just actually step back for a second.
Sure, step back.
All right. I get my stuff, and I got my credit card. I'm going to swipe and get out. Yeah. That's fairly easy. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, this thing has not changed for the last 60, 70 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, money has not changed, right? So, again, we've optimized everything towards maybe the frictionless payment side. But what else can you do beyond that?
Sure.
50 billion connected devices coming up in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
How do we leverage that so that not only people think about payment at the end? So, I mean, there's this MasterCard or whatever is in my wallet is a total afterthought about, what I buy, right? So how do we make sure that people think about PayPal? How do we help the consumers so that what you want is already in your, in your smart wallet, right? And so that's really the goal, and that will incentivize consumers to walk into the stores. And again, it's going to be very much multi-channel, right? It's not just about a device that you plug in and you swipe using a smart card, a smartphone. It's not only that, but it's also about POS, mobile devices, SMB swipes, as well as online experience, all coming together. And that's really multi-channel.
And we'll get into some of those examples of the other place where you have touch points. But it seems like, to your earlier point, you're really kind of challenging an entrenched habit in the credit card swipe.
Yes.
Now, there are a lot of competing standards for mobile payments out there that are similarly doing that. I think one of the advantages you guys have is lower barriers for the merchant, for example, in this type of situation. Yep. There's no additional hardware required. You're both embedded into the POS systems, but then also in the individual relationships of all these guys, you're able to, it's a software add-on rather than a hardware add-on, which is a huge difference, right?
It is. I mean, because our position with, especially for example, NFC, I don't think the masses have adopted that yet. Mm-hmm. And when it comes, we'll be ready. But it's not about a particular hardware that we're pushing. It's more about, okay, how do we just make sure that it's your money and you can pay for it really easily and then get a lot more value out of that, right? So, again, it's certainly, we're targeting the LMs, large merchants, mid-market, SMBs, all sort of in a brick fashion. Then we have the mobile, and then we have the online.
Yep. Now let's go kind of down market. We've talked about the LMs.
Yeah. Now
let's talk about some more acronyms. The SMBs, or not necessarily SMBs, but moving down market to a lower barrier solution. What is PayPal Here all about?
PayPal Here is really, again, the whole vision of trying to make everything seamless and painless in terms of trying to make sure that people can pay. I mean, if I'm a taco truck driver and not everyone uses cash these days, I'm driving around selling my tacos, how do I pay for that? Mm-hmm. I mean, swipe. And this technology has been around before Square too, right? Mm-hmm. There are people who've been using this and pushing this for a while.
Sure.
So
Verifone has one. Intuit has one, correct?
Intuit has one. And so really, I think it's very smart way to sort of make your little device that's connected into a point of sale solution. But again, it's a really cheap way to do it. I like our device just because you see the inside there is it encrypts all the information. So basically, I don't think Square has this yet. Is when you plug in the Square device and you swipe your card, information that goes from there to the OS of your device to the app that flies over, it's not encrypted.
Yeah.
So it's really easy for somebody to just put some, I don't know, programs and figure out, okay, every swipe that you do, we can just steal the credit card. So some of the things that we've really laser focused on was making sure that when swipe happens, all the information gets encrypted within that device before it goes into the OS. So it's pretty awesome.
Now, one of the things that Square and Verifone and Intuit are going through with their similar kind of dongle devices is not just making a payment easier, making it easier for a merchant to accept payments, but also replacing the cash register altogether, having additional data layers that SMBs can utilize to then do things like that. I believe that you guys have an advantage over them in that respect, because of the fact that the kind of omni-channel angle you were talking about earlier, you have other layers of data to bring into the picture for a more robust data set to then iterate on for, I guess, phase 2 of building things loyalty programs. So I guess we went over some of these burning questions that I've written out here. The value versus a credit card swipe. For users, it can be, there are certain advantages, probably both credit card swipe and your program in different use cases, but it provides an alternative. I think that's pretty powerful. And for merchants, the additional kind of data. Anything to add here before we move on?
Yeah, so I lead data science in PayPal, and when Mike, when you say data, I can talk about that for hours and hours. And I do think, especially not just for mobile, local, and social, big data. Everyone's heard of that now, right? I mean, who of you have not heard of big data?
It's just like regular data, but bigger.
Yeah, exactly. Much, much bigger. It won't fit in your machine. So we're talking about tens of petabytes of data, transactional data. What I usually say is what searches to Google, transactions are to PayPal. And that data itself is the strongest signal in commerce that tells me and how we can predict where Mike might spend his money next, right? So it's a strong signal that tells us that, okay, from this information, we can make your life better.
Yeah.
So that's really sort of the direction that we're headed, and that's why we're really trying to beef up our data science teams. By the way, if any of you have PhDs in machine learning, please come see me afterwards. So again, becomes a very, very important piece of what our value add becomes. And we want, we want to give people a much better experience than taking it out and swiping. It's got to be a lot more than that. And we're just scratching the surface.
Right, and to the data point, we had Gary Kearns from MasterCard on this stage last year for our Deals conference. And one thing he said resonated with me, and it reminded me of the point you just made, which is that in terms of a signal to be used for ongoing iteration of where I'm placing myself, when compared to search, which has always been a good proxy for intent, he said that I'm what I buy, not what I search for, in just being a more powerful signal in terms of just being able to use that data. So your point, I think, resonates well. In terms of that phase 2, I know that's forward-looking, but do you think you guys are providing the foundation for whether it be merchants or third parties to then use that data to build their own loyalty programs in their shops, utilizing you as a foundation? Or are you interested in actually becoming that layer as well, the front end to the loyalty?
Yeah, so there's nothing quite set in stone yet. There's lots of great ideas that are coming out, and certainly, I think because the core is so strong that there are lots of different options that we have and directions that we want to go to. But if we think about what the pillars are in terms of philosophy of what PayPal is about, we're really here to help merchants. We're really here to help consumers, and there's a lot of consumer and mobile focus now. And the third leg actually is the developers.
Oh, sure.
Right. So we really want to make sure that whatever that we build, if it's a recommendation system for what you have that might, maybe it's a CRM system that'll let you say, hey, Mike bought 2 cups of coffee here. Let's make sure he gives, we incentivize him and give him 20% off next time. So all those ideas are on the table right now, and the technologies are there. That's really not I don't think that technology is the easy part. It's really trying to put together and what is the right first step so that, ultimately we want consumers going into stores, both online and brick, and spending money, right? So
now, when we talk about that kind of predictive modeling and the data that it's based on, and back to big data, I know a point that you wanted to address is something that not many people's minds race to when we talk about this, which is privacy.
Yeah.
What is PayPal's stance on, how you're using this data, how you're using it responsibly, and how you are responding to any kind of privacy concerns that might be out there around this kind of data collection? Yeah,
I mean, this is it's a hot topic. Really, a lot of companies probably don't want to talk too much about it. We don't mind because I think really, at the end of the day, we just go back to the pillars of the company. This is for you, and any way we can help with the data that we get from you, we'll do that. Feel free to opt out, and we'll still have a great experience in a sense that it'll be more of an aggregated experience. So you'll still get, I don't know, the example I use is like Groupon, getting bikini waxes all the time. I don't necessarily want that. So is there a more personalized experience that you can have? And that's really the direction that we want to go. Again, if you opt out, feel free to do that, and still we'll try to make as best experience as we can. In terms of data, I mean, like legally also, things are just constantly changing. There's a thing called the PII. Have people heard of PII? So personally identifiable information, basically. So you can't share that across companies or different databases, and which is still a step towards the right way to think about it. But then it's not strong enough either. So. And then there's all these privacy issues which are different from North America to EMEA, APAC.
Absolutely.
So everything's really, really sort of funging. But within that, the way we think about it is let's just make sure we go back to the right thing to do for the customer. And that's it. I think that's really the longer term right way to think about it.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's a responsible way to look at it. I want to signal the audience in case there are questions. Again, actually we probably have some more now, but the MLMSFQ. If you want to ask questions, I'll get them right here, and we'll pose them to Moke here. So let's talk about some of the other kind of forward-looking things that you might be doing. Other places we could see PayPal, and two kind of strike me or jump out to me. One being social integration. We just had a panel on social. Facebook is very much getting into payments, I think, to kind of diversify their revenue stream, which is right now about 15% of revenues. And you can answer these in any order you want. The second one is a great article I read recently about the integration with the television, and not only just the television as a piece of hardware, but television content and being able to, I think, what is it starting to be called T-commerce.
Yes.
So social and T-commerce.
Okay. Social is pretty amazing because there's gazillions of data there. The problem there is that much of the data that you see is unstructured, meaning, if you look at tweets, there's probably a name field, the location, and even like if you think about check-ins or check-outs and things like that. But then typically it's more about the narration of like, hey, I'm here, great coffee, thanks, or something like that. How does a computer understand that unstructured data and then make sense out of that? So that's why I think part of data science, what we're trying to do is really invest heavily into a thing called natural language processing. There's machine learning, data mining, natural language processing, information retrieval. There's a bunch of different fields all around. But at the end of the day, what you want to do is make sense of all that unstructured data. I would argue that, 99% of the stuff that you see on the web is unstructured. So you spend a lot of time there trying to just clean and make sense out of that. So stronger you are being able to make sense in a scalable and self-learning way, then the stronger you'll be in terms of understanding what social media is. So, and how does social media, what does that mean to us? Well, what does it mean to a local merchant, for example? So if I'm a small coffee shop and somebody I know that is a customer of mine basically says, great coffee, thank you, I had, Pike Place today, and that was awesome. I mean, that itself, and you get thousands of tweets, you can't read every one of them, try to respond to those things. Mm-hmm. From those kind of information, you can still, machines can figure out and really heighten sort of the profiling of the users, really. So you have a better understanding of what they like, what they dislike. So it's a great way to go about mining social media so that we can better help buyers and sellers connect.
Yep, and that goes back to your earlier point about just becoming that stronger outlet for utilizing that data. So quick points on T-commerce, and then I have what I think is a good audience question here, and then we'll wrap up.
Yep. Oh, T-commerce. Scott Dunlap, just wonderful, wonderful job, and really multi-channel again, right? Mm-hmm. So anywhere you can start paying with whatever, we got to enable that. Yeah. So I think it's still in the. I love the name, by the way. I think hope it sticks, and it's still.
We'll find a way to turn it into an acronym.
Right, first, right. So again, it's. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah. So great audience question here via Twitter. What's going on with Where? You guys recently incorporated Where ads into PayPal after the acquisition, which was about a year and a half ago. And you actually come from Where.
Yes.
So the question is, what's going on with Where, generally speaking?
Lots of great stuff. PayPal Media Network is sort of the new brand, still led by Walt Doyle, great guy. There's tons of stuff happening, actually. And it's, again, goes back to our pillars, goes back to how do we enable merchants to, reach out, and also vice versa. How do we make consumers reach into the merchants? And that's where data science will make that more efficient. But we need those pipes, right? Yeah. We need the communication channels. So one of the reasons why Where was acquired about a year ago was because of that reason.
Sure.
I don't know if you guys heard of Where from Boston, but it was mobile app network, mobile apps, recommendation systems to merchant services, everything in a mobile smartphone.
Walt Doyle likes to say it's the demand generation side of the equation, that it's bringing users into the funnel.
Yes.
A process that ends many steps later with a PayPal transaction. So it's really that closed loop thing that we're all kind of been talking about for the past few years.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So we've got to make sure, again, that whole funnel becomes important. Every stage of the funnel is something that we really have to focus on as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good. We'll focus on every stage of the funnel. That's a good way to leave it.
Yeah.
Join me in thanking Moak.